Hi, this is Shravani. Our team is 7. We have developed a multi-tenant services application where a user can access any of the 3 multi-tenant services which are listed here in this drop-down menu, like Waterfall, Scrum, Kanban. My contribution in our team project is to develop UI and functionality for the login and sign up. This is the login and sign up page for the application which we have developed. And if a user wants to access the application for the first time, user needs to register here by providing the details of the user, like first name, last name, email ID, password, and the technology which user wants to access after the registration is completed. And here email ID should be unique because it is going to be used as the login ID for the user after registration. And the password, it should contain at least 6 characters, one uppercase, one lowercase, and one numeric. Let us try creating a user. It should be unique. Choosing waterfall or Kanban here, so that user gets access to the Kanban services after registration is completed. I got the access to the Kanban. As email ID should be unique, let's try giving the same email ID for the different user. I should get an error. Yeah, I got an error saying you have an account already. Okay, let's try giving different email ID, so that I should get the access now. Choosing waterfall now, so that after registration is completed, I should get the access to the waterfall services. Okay, and this is how sign up works. When it comes to the login, I need to provide the email ID which I have provided at the registration time as the login ID, and the password, it should match with the password which I gave at the registration time. Let's try logging in with a wrong password. So that it should any access for me now. Yeah. Okay, this is the login and sign up page for the multi-tenant services application. Here I have used AngularJS, HTML, Bootstrap for developing the front-end development, and I have used Express framework and Node.js for the back-end development. I have used MySQL for storing the data, user data, which is provided at the time of registration in the MySQL database. So this is about
I'm Kruthi and I'll be explaining about the waterfall model in our application, that is multi-tenant software technologies. Let me log into the waterfall model. Okay, this is the page that appears to the user whenever he or she logs in for the first time. Let me click on the untitled link. This is the project properties, where by default the project name is untitled and the start date is the current date and the finish date is empty. Let me change the project date as well as the finish date and try to save it. Okay, there is a validation that doesn't allow the start date to be the past date. It has to be the current date or the future date. So let me just change this to 2. And finish date validation is that the finish date cannot be less than the start date. So let me just make it as 3. Okay, let me save the properties, and if I go back it has to be there. Okay, you can see it. Okay, let me explain the resource page first. Okay, this page is basically used to add the resources that are associated with the project, and it has two mandatory fields, that is the name and the email ID, and it has to be a valid email ID, otherwise the save button won't be enabled. So let it be. Okay, save. Okay, you can see it is added. Let me add one more field, that is gmail.com. Okay, you can see this is the add a resource mode. So if I click, okay, if I click on the edit button, you can see it is in the edit resource mode, and there is a update button, so you can make any changes you need and just click on update, and you can see the data has been updated. If the resource is not needed, then click on the delete, and it will be deleted from the resource page as well as the database. So if something I type which is not necessary and I just want to delete, there is no need of clearing it. Just click on the cancel and the fields will be cleared. Okay, let me go back to the task page. Okay, here the user can enter the tasks and details and add it to the task. So let me enter the task name as testing. It can be any description. Let me choose a date, and these fields has to be of the type specified, that is the dates has to be in the date format. And if I give planned hour as some character just for the validation check and some resource, okay, still the save button is disabled because the planned hour is number, and until we fill all the mandatory fields other than comments and the actual hours, which are the optional fields, the save button won't be enabled. Let me try to save this. Okay, there is another validation, that is the start date should be the future date. Again, the start date can't be the past date, it has to be the future date or the current date. So let me just try to save. Again, the finish date can't be less than the start date, so let me give the same date as the start date, and let me try to save it. Okay, there's one more validation, that is I'm considering in a day a person will work for 8 hours. So if the start date and finish date are same and the planned hours is more than the working hours, that is 8, it won't be allowed. So let me just change this to 3. Okay, let me try to save this now. Okay, there is one more validation, that is please check the resource invalid resource email address, as in the resource page there is no resource with the email ID Kruthi at D. The valid resource ID one which I added there was kruthi@gmail.com. Let me save this. Okay, you can see the data has been saved. And if I want to edit this, just click on the edit, and now it is in the edit mode with the fields auto filled. Okay, now I can enter the actual hours, let it be like 8. Okay, let me just update this. Okay, you can see the actual hours has been updated. Similarly, all other fields can be updated. And okay, let me add one more task so that I can show you people how the delete works. Okay, if I click on the delete, the task will be deleted. So that is how it works. And okay, let me show what is this project status for. If I click on this, it shows 89%. This is because you can see the planned hours is 9 and already the 8 hours has been completed, which is 89% completion of the project basically, because there is only one task. If I change the actual hours less, make it like 4, and if I update, there will be change in the project status, that will be 44%. And now if I click on the save project, which is the last thing to do, okay, project name cannot be untitled. Since we haven't given any name to our project, it won't allow us to save the project. So let me just give the name as project ABC and save it. Okay, so now the final project has been saved, and I can just sign out. And let me sign back. CmpE281@gmail.com with waterfall model and sign in. Okay, the data which we saved will appear as it is. You can see the project details as well as the resource page. And one more thing I would like to show is, if I log in as any other tenant, say xyz@gmail.com, this tenant should not be able to see the data of the tenant CmpE280.
Hello, this is Priyanka. I'm from Team 7. So we developed a multi-tenant app using main stack. I'm responsible for the Scrum model. I designed and implemented the schema as well as the UI as well as the working for Scrum. So let me quickly demo what I've done as a part of this project. So this is our sign up page for any tenant. Let me sign up first. Priyanka Ravikanti. Let me enter my email ID. Gmail, password. So I select the technology as Scrum. I click on register. So this is the Scrum page. So you have two tabs for navigation. One is user stories and the other is sprint. Sprint has add sprint, select sprint options, and the user stories lists all the user stories that are created. So as you see, initially you see a standard list of columns. So story name, points, sprint and status are common across all the tenants. So if you want to customize the list of columns, you can do it through the backend. I'll quickly demo that in a while. Before we go for it, so let me show you that even the add story has story name, points and sprint. It doesn't have status because status is something that we compute automatically. Let me create a story so that you will understand it better. Story 1, points 1. Sprints is not yet populated because we have no sprints assigned. We have no sprints created yet. So let me go ahead and click on OK. So you see that the status is created. So let me quickly create a sprint and see the status again. Here you have an add sprint button. You enter the duration and you give the team size. This is the team velocity, which means the expected points out of this sprint. That is 3. Let me click on OK. Now you see that the sprint is populated in the drop down. Let me click on Go. You see that there are no user stories assigned to this sprint because we have just created it and we have not assigned any stories to this. So now let me see project status. Since we just created the sprint, it shows the expected points as 3 and the completed points as 0. So it is 0 because we have not assigned stories to the sprint. So the stories get to a completed state only when we mark that sprint as complete. So let me first assign the story to the sprint that we just created. So I can make use of this edit button over here. So now we see that the sprint list is now populated. So let me click on sprint 1. Click on OK. Now the story is updated and the status is also changed to assigned. Alright, so now if I go and click on sprint 1, it shows that story 1 is assigned to it. So I have a button that popped up now that is mark sprint complete. So let me click on that and see what happens. So this is the message, success message that you get, and then you have the status changed to assigned and completed. Now if I go ahead and check the project status, looks like it's a refresh problem. You see that the completed points is updated. So the expected is 3, completed is 1, we are good, and the project completion date is updated accordingly. So let me click another story. Story 2, points 2. Now you see that sprint 1 option is disabled. So this is because we just marked the sprint as complete. So it's a bad practice to assign stories to a completed sprint. So I implemented a disable option for this. So you cannot assign to sprint 1 anymore. And you also notice that the sprint story 1 is now disabled. I mean, the options to delete and edit story 1 is disabled because it's already complete. Alright, so this is the scenario for any tenant without any custom columns. So if you see, the project status is 3 and 1, that is fine because we have not assigned story 2 to any. Although it has points assigned to it, we have not assigned it to a sprint. That is why it doesn't reflect in the project status. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you how to customize your column list. So in the back end, we have something called a tenant table in MySQL. Let me show you that I just signed up. All my credentials are stored in this tenant table. So if you see, I signed up using Priyanka R at Gmail, my first name, last name, and the type is Scrum. All these credentials are stored in this table. So if I want to customize my column, I go into another table called technology. So the schema for this technology table is technology name, technology ID, tenant ID, and column list. So column list is the custom column list for each tenant. So now if I insert a record using my tenant ID, you will see that the column list in the UI is updated. So let me insert a record first. Insert into technology, values. Technology ID could be anything, so I give it a 4. And technology name is Scrum. Tenant ID is 89. If you see, my tenant ID is 89 here. Column list, let me give my custom column list. Column 2, column 3, and enter. Just to make sure, let me do a select star again. Now you see that I inserted a new record with my tenant ID and my new column list. So this doesn't override the existing standard set of lists. This will add to the column list, which means that apart from story names, points, and sprint, I should be able to see column 1, column 2, and column 3. So let me refresh my screen. Alright, now you see that column 1, 2, and 3 are populated. So these have no values here because at the time of the record story creation, there were no column 1, 2, and 3. So now let's add a new story with this column 1, 2, and 3. And you see that the even add story dialog is now updated with column 1, 2, and 3. So let me give the values as column 1, column 2, column 3, story 3, points, let me give 2 points. And again, you cannot assign to sprint 1 because it is in completed state. Let me go ahead and click on OK. You see that the new story is updated with the new list of data that we entered. So let me go ahead and add a new sprint. So I can create any number of sprints and any number of stories. And click on OK. You see that the list is now populated with the new sprint ID. And the new sprint has no stories assigned to it, hence the message. Let me look at the project status. Now we have expected points as 51 because we just created a new sprint with a new velocity. So let me assign our newly created story to this sprint, which is sprint 2. Click on OK. Now it shows up in the sprint 2 list. So this is how the Scrum model works. So if you want to delete a story, you can just go ahead and delete. This story can't be deleted because it is already assigned and completed. So I've also included custom message validations like note, these custom notes, and also when you try to assign or add a story or edit a story, all these print options are disabled because they are complete. So this is what is the basic functionality of Scrum model. And this is the schema. I hope I covered all of it. So if you want to delete, you just click on it. And if you want to mark a sprint as complete, you can click on sprint 2, go. There are no user stories assigned. let me create a story. Story 2, column 2, column 2. Points 1. Let me assign it to sprint 2. Alright, now I have sprint 2. If I go ahead and mark sprint 2 as complete, you will see that the status will change from assigned to assigned and completed. And the story 2 is also now disabled because it's already complete. And the project status is updated accordingly. The completed points is 2 and the projected completion date is 23. So this completion date is computed from the current date, starting from the current date. Alright, so this is all about Scrum, and this is how the Scrum works. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Manpreet Gandhi. I'll be giving a demo on Kanban from a multi-tenant application. For that purpose, we have to first create a login ID. So we have to sign up. So we have to provide some credentials like first name, last name, email address, we have to type a password. The password should contain one capital letter, one small letter, and one integer. So select the technology as Kanban and register it. Okay. This is what the user is going to see at the initial login. He can add cards from here. He can write the description like requirement 1 and select the lane to do and save it. He can add various cards like this, save it, requirement 3, change the lane, save it, requirement 4, save it, requirement 5, save it. We are going to add minimum 10 number of cards, as we have kept the 10 number of the 10 is the limit of the threshold. So let's create 10 cards. 6, done, save. 7, done, save. 8, done, save. 9, done, save. Now 10, save. Okay, if we try to add one more card, the pop-up will occur that we have exceeded the limit of threshold, but it still will be able to store the data. So let us add one more in to do column. See, it is showing that. Now we can edit these cards. We can edit by clicking on this button. Whenever we want to edit this, the details of the card will be shown in the bottom table. So we want to change the lane. Suppose we want to change the lane from to do, we want to move it in doing. We can update it. Okay, we have changed the lane. Requirement is now in to do doing lane. So we can change the project name as well, like we can write CmpE 281. Let's select the start date. Start with date, suppose it's 7th May, end date is 15th May. Let's save it. Now we can see the project name on the top left corner. We can check the project status from over here. The project status will show the number of cards present in each lane. So cards present in to do lane are 2, in doing lane are 4, and in done lane are 5. So we can also add resources. So we can add resources by clicking on this button. Yeah. So let us add. Let me add Manpreet as a resource. Manpreet@gmail3.com. Let me add one more. Kruthi @gmail3.com. Sorry, in the wrong box. First name and email address. Yeah. Let's save it. We can also edit these, like clicking on edit. It is showing here. We can change the details, like we can write V here and update it. See, it's updated in the records. Okay, we can also check the project status from over here, and the card status, yeah, it's coming fine. So we can also check, we can go back to cards and check. Yeah, so earlier it was two cards in to do, 4 cards in doing, and 5 cards in done. So it is coming perfectly. So let us sign out and sign in again. So this was my email ID. Yes, correct. Let's sign in. Oh, so this is coming fine. Now we can also edit and check the project status, which was same. So the demo of my part is done. Thank you.